This is PatZi with a Z. Welcome to Joy on Paper Live. I'm so happy to have today with me a very wonderful author, one of my favorite and one of my sister's favorite, and her name is Barbara Hinskey. In case you don't know, I don't know how you haven't heard about her because she's very famous. Her new book, and it's released today, is From the Heart, and all of her books are written from the heart, and it is book 5 in her wonderful Guiding Emily series. I'm so happy to welcome you, Barbara. Great to see you.
It's wonderful to be with you again, Patsy. It's always just such the treat, especially of a new book launch season, to
Yeah,
get to visit with you.
and I don't think it ever gets boring to have a book launch.
Oh, I don't think it does. For sure it doesn't.
So today, book 5, and I just want to show people
Yeah.
the books, all 5 of them, in order, because just to
Well,
remind
thank
them.
you.
And here they are. And we
Thank
started
you.
with Guiding Emily, and I remember that very well. I remember the day it came out because you were talking to me. And then,
I
of
do
course,
remember.
and then we went on to The Unexpected Path, over every hurdle, down the aisle, and now today, it's so fantastic, From the Heart. And I love to be with
Thank
authors
you.
on the release date. And this one is so good. Oh, well,
Thank you.
there's so many things I love in this book. I just want to say I love Martha Maine. I love
Yeah.
Martha. I,
She's wonderful.
she's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a name that I just love. And when I wrote my first book when I was about 11, it is not published. My main character, the mother, was named Martha. And so that was just a name that's always stuck with me. I love it. There's so many aspects in this book, and of course you bring out a wonderful, wonderful array of characters around Emily, because we love Emily. And oh, I have to say, Garth, you have given him great a great voice in this book. So
he's
here we
he's
are.
he's got to be my favorite character to write, for sure.
Well, for sure, I can see why. So, we love him. And so here is the book, From the Heart, book number 5. And why don't you tell us about it? Because the storyline is terrific. We've gotten to a very important point in Emily's life
Thank you.
since we started.
And I don't think any of this is spoiler alerts, because people who read my books expect things to move along and be happy. So Emily is a newlywed, and she and her husband both have daughters. Emily's is a guardian of Zoe, and her husband Grant is Deidre's dad. He's a widower, and so they're blending a family of two fifth grade girls. And as anybody who's parented or been around a fifth grade girl, they can be kind of mercurial beings. It isn't always smooth sailing. And it isn't for Emily and Grant either. What I wanted to do in this series, Emily is blind and she has her guide dog. And I wanted to show some of that but I wanted to show visually impaired people not as tragic or as heroic, neither one, but just as ordinary people who are coping with the ordinary pushes and pulls of life, only they do things a little bit differently than many of us would do them, because they're working with their lack of eyesight. So they've got, here you've got two people who are working with a blended family. They both have busy careers, a very, a can't turn it down job opportunity comes up for Grant that takes him out of town an awful lot. So now Emily's got all the family responsibilities on her shoulders, and they do what a lot of families do, and they piece together, the grandparents help out. But and now I am a grandparent, and so, like most grandparents, you love your grandkids, you're so happy to help, but you still have your own lives. You can't just be available all the time. And sometimes the parents are just going to have to figure it out, right?
Exactly. And
So there
there,
is,
there's a
along
line in
that.
there
Yeah.
that really touched me when there's a character, of course, Martha Main, and there was a line that really got to me when she tells Grant, because Grant wants to do, everything he can to just make their life normal.
Yeah.
And I love that about him. I mean, he's such a wonderful character.
Yeah.
But when Martha says to him, you can't shield people you love from everything. And that says so much. And I think that's so important, a message that you're giving to people.
Well, and that certainly is true. And sometimes couples, there is bound to be lack of communication. And as in any relationship, whether it's work, home, whatever, lack of communication is not a good way to move forward. But it happens. And so you have to, you know, work through being perhaps mad on your own side, but then understand that the other party is doing the very best that they can. Um, so that was a big theme in the book. And the other big theme is something in my research that really knocked me back on my heels. I've talked to hundreds of visually impaired people in the, 4 years now since the first book was published. And it was longer, of course, when I was writing and researching Guiding Emily. So I was just astounded to hear the discrimination that blind parents face within the community and even the medical community. There are a lot of people who think that if you're blind, you can't be a parent or shouldn't be a parent until the 20 teens, like 2015. There were a number of states that would not allow custody, would not award custody to a visually impaired parent. Sole custody had to be in the sighted parent, and visitation would be supervised. I mean, that is just astounding to me. And women who are visually impaired and having babies get shamed a whole lot. And then even, I don't know about you, PatZi, but when my kids were little, most of my friends were the parents of their good friends. You just kind of float around in that community of your kids and your kids' parents, friends, and all that. So I asked this one woman who's just she's been blind since she was a teenager. Now she's in her early 40s. And so she works, she does everything. She is a little dynamo. And I said, well, surely this doesn't affect you. And she said, oh, yeah, it does. Kids aren't allowed to come over to our house to play. Her husband is sighted, but my kids go to their house to play because parents won't trust them. And her kids aren't infant or even little. Her kids are like 13 and 15.
Oh,
So
I didn't
plenty
know
old
that.
enough. It's shocking, isn't
It
it?
is.
Yeah,
I am. I'm shocked by this.
yeah. So I wanted people to understand. Um, this woman actually had the experience with her second pregnancy, and she was there she was having some problems. Her doctor referred her to a specialist. I think she had some sort of swelling. They were concerned. They sent her to a specialist. She goes to the specialist appointment with her 4-year-old by the hand, and the doctor says, oh, good, I'm glad we're going to do this amniocentesis now because you've still got 1 week left. If we find out the baby is blind, then you can do something about this pregnancy, meaning you can terminate the
Oh,
pregnancy. What a
wow.
thing to tell somebody. She's blind. You're telling, her kid is with her. He's sighted. But you're basically saying, well, who would want, we would instantly terminate a blind baby.
Oh, my.
She was furious, tore a strip off of the doctor, and then went back to her original doctor and said, okay, never mind. I will treat you. Don't worry about this. But what a hurtful thing to say to
It's
somebody.
cruel. It's cruel.
It's cruel. People are cruel. And so um, I start in on that in this book. And I probably will continue that theme just because it is a little shocking to me. It's a
Wow.
lot shocking.
It is. It is. but there's so much in this book, and one of the things, of course,
Mm.
the girls and how the family is coming together. And there's many aspects of it that I found interesting. That girls are different. I love
Mhm.
I sort of I like both things. The one is interested in science, and we've got a science thing. When I was a kid, that's how I was always doing science experiments and
Yeah,
participating. But also, I love the
yeah, me too.
little theater part. I love that.
Yeah. Well, that was based I was like you, I was the science nerd, but my daughter was a theater kid, still is a theater kid at 35, and so I do remember all those evenings going to play rehearsal and thinking, "These are little kids. What are we doing here at, 11:15 on a school night rehearsing? This is nuts." But kinda how you roll with that, so that's what we did.
Well, I know that was fun. We had so much fun actually in the little theater that at one point, um, my husband was we were watching a rehearsal and they needed an extra and they asked him if he would like to do it. And my husband, who's never been on stage in his life, he jumped right in. I was surprised, but he's a
Good for
business
him.
guy and he's used to speaking, so that wasn't too much of a surprise. He could do it. And then about a week later or two
Love
weeks
it.
later, they said, "Well, we need another extra." And they looked at me. And now I'm a shy person. Before I
Yeah,
started the radio program, I was
I wouldn't have
always the one
guessed.
reading in a corner and not talking to anyone. And this is Fiddler in the Roof. And they needed
Oh
an
my.
extra. And the village person was supposed to dance and sing.
Oh
And they look at
boy.
me. I reluctantly went up there. But the minute I got on stage, I was hooked. I mean, I loved it. I loved it.
So did you continue and do more?
No, no, that was the experience, but I loved it. And I love having a lot of different ideas in a book like this, where you have everybody doing something different, and I think it opens people's minds. They think about these things.
Well, certainly my reviewers say that. They like all the things they learn in the books, and the books are not meant to be preachy or how to nobody picks up a book for somebody to um, proselytize to you, and I don't do that. But there are interesting things. I even referred, I think in the third book, to one of the assistive technology devices that's current, but it isn't like cutting edge. I kind of stay away from that because it'll date a book. But there was something called the Pen Friend, and it's been around for ages. And you can attach a little dot to something, and then the Pen Friend, you can point it at the dot and record your voice, and it'll tell you what's in there so that later you can find it. You can point your pen at that thing, and it'll tell you what it is. That's how it works for visually impaired people. And I actually had someone who was visually impaired contact me and say, "Oh, thank you so much. I didn't even know about the pen friend." And I got one and I love it. So I'm happy
Yeah.
about that.
And of course, people just love reading the story, and it's just so amazing what you've taken Emily through. She's done so much. In the beginning, it was almost heartbreaking. You weren't sure how she would
Yeah.
survive it, and of course, you you come to the whole idea of a blind character simply from a little trip you took
Yes.
to where? Tell us
Yeah.
about that start, because
Yeah,
that's so impressive. This is what
thank
is
you.
wonderful about an author. One little thing can change your life.
Absolutely. I started 2019 with absolutely no idea about this book, this series, or anything about it. But I was seated at a black tie fundraiser for a local library next to the development director of the Foundation for Blind Children, which happens to be a mile from my house. I've lived down the street for 30 plus years. Have I ever been in? No. So he said, "Okay, we were having the best time chatting," and he's still a very good friend now. And he said, "Come next week. You and Brian come and tour." And we did. I was so moved by the work they did, not just with children, but with adults too. I said, "What do you need? What can I do to help?" "Well, a nonprofit needs money." And he said, "We need to let the sighted community know how isolated blind people feel within the sighted community. So I pipe up and I say, well, I can help with all those things. I can write a book. And I can showcase the isolation, and I can donate, and I do donate half of my royalties from Guiding Emily to the foundation. And he didn't look at me like, yeah, right, lady. He said, oh, okay, well, that would be great. What do you need from us? And I said, well, gosh, I'm going to need a lot of research. And he said, I can hook you up with all that. So they did what they were supposed to, what they promised, what they offered. I talked to medical professionals. I talked to assistive technology people. I met the woman whose guide dog became Garth in my series. I took white cane training. And then I was later able to get over to Guide Dogs for the Blind in San Rafael, California, and spend 3 days with them. They were so kind. Let me be behind the scenes and see their operation. So that's what launched Guiding Emily in this whole isolation within the sighted community thing. And of course, I've just talked about how that plays out
Well,
for parents. And then I don't know if you'd like me to talk about this or not, but I can hardly shut me up. I've also learned from the research now of these 5 books of the astoundingly awful, I mean, just the reprehensible unemployment rate of the visually impaired who are capable of and want jobs. There are 800,000 people, visually impaired people in the US, who would like jobs and can hold down a job. And everybody who's blind can't. And, as you age, a lot of people, some people become blind. And, if you're 75, you're probably not looking for a job. But of these 80,000 people, that represents an unemployment, not 80,000, 800,000, 800,000. That's a 70%, 70, unemployment rate. No one I've talked to says, when I grow up, I want to live on Social Security disability. Nobody. So I'm a goal setter and a visioner and a business planner as an author. But I set a personal goal for me for 2024 to decrease that 70% number by 10%. That would mean by the end of 2024, as a result of whatever I'm doing, 80,000 people will have jobs within the sighted community, 80,000 blind people.
wow.
How will I do that? I had no clue. So as a result of the Guiding Emily movie, I have had such a broader reach with my message and connections with people, particularly within the national blind community. So I decided, okay, and talking with American Council for the Blind, all kinds of people, I said, well, I'm going to try and moderate, not try, I'm going to moderate panels of visually impaired people, their employers, and some assistive technology experts at huge human resource conventions. Like, think the Society of Human Resource Managers, SHRM, I think is the big one. So I'm applying for speaker positions. ACB and FBC have helped me staff panels, and I haven't done one yet. I'm close to being approved, haven't gotten approved for the first one yet. I'm fingers crossed. The idea is to get in front of hiring managers within the sighted community, big banks, insurance, all,
Yeah.
medical hospitals, all those people, and ignite in them a fire to hire people from this community. What's in it for them? You have virtually no turnover, so you don't have a whole lot of churning of jobs. If you hire somebody in this community, they're so glad to have a job. They will stay and work their way through the ranks. And if you're looking for someone who can problem solve, think outside the box, that's what they do 24/7 to live. So
Well,
that's what
it's
I'm hoping to
it's
do.
fantastic. Well, I mean, one of the things, of course, you mentioned here, and this is so important. You mentioned the
Yes.
film, and this is really, I think,
Yeah.
opened people's eyes, and it's a wonderful,
Yes.
wonderful. Well, it was one Hallmark movie. I hope it's a series. They're
Yes.
making it into a series, right? They have to.
I
I
have
love
not
this.
heard anything definitive yet, but I
Everybody
do.
loves it.
I think it will be. Thank you. I was so proud of this movie, of the job they did. Of on the screen, you can see Miss Sarah Drew, who was
There she is, Sarah Drew.
wonderful. Yeah,
She
perfect.
she was like a perfect find.
She
When
was.
she came on, it was like I just took like a deep breath and said, "Oh my goodness, we
Yeah,
found Emily."
yeah.
And of
She
course,
worked so hard.
so she went through some the white cane training, and right,
Oh yeah, and yes, and how to work with a guide dog. Usually, I guess when an actor or an actress shows up for a Hallmark movie, it's, getting with the costume people and the makeup people and the hair people. Well, not
this
this
is the
movie. I mean, you have all that plush, the little matter of learning to function as a visually impaired person and how to function with a guide dog, which doesn't just happen. Somebody doesn't just hand you your dog and say, "Okay, here you go." There's ways to work with them. So she worked very hard, and I think was so concerned. And one fun fact about this, although Sarah is cited, every other actor in the movie, whether extra or with a few speaking lines, whatever, every other actor who was blind in the movie was blind in real life. Hallmark brought together visually impaired actors from all over Canada. And so Sarah would go up to them and say, "Hey, what about?" And they would help her. It was just such an extraordinarily collegial experience.
well, the acting is so great in it. All the extras
I
are
agree.
great. I mean, you, you almost think they must be actors, but they're not. I mean,
Yeah.
they know what they're doing, and it's wonderful. What was it like to hear Garth talk for the first time? I mean, other than in your head. Now you have such a wonderful person narrating Garth. I think he's so great, Eric
Was
McCormack.
Yeah, Eric McCormack, and they kept that a secret from me until they finally told me on set. They said, "Okay, well, we're not supposed to tell." It was a big secret, but they told me, and I just about lost it. I thought he was so good. I thought he
Well,
was just so wonderful. And I do think on the audiobook, Fred Berman, who is a Broadway actor, does Garth in the books, and I think he's remarkable as well. I love the voices of Garth. Um, and of course, Garth is the fictional character that is the godlike character. He is perfect. He is always kind, always thinking of others, never selfish. So he is that kind of energy. And he had to come about in the first book because a woman losing her eyesight and going through all that descent into despair and depression, and then as she climbs out, regaining her independence, it would have been a pretty heavy book and not typical of me if I didn't have the dog character in there to add some levity and humor, which is why I originally decided to put him in. And I'm so glad I did because he is everybody's favorite.
well, he's a star in so many ways because the minute he starts talking, there's something you've written him so beautifully. It's like
Yeah.
I I forget. I forget you're not a dog. It's just like you're thinking so beautifully and make him come alive. Actually, if I'm I read the book, of course, once. I usually read your books twice at least, but I go back because I like to see how you do it. I mean, you are such a fine writer. Of course, you come,
Thank you.
as a former or reformed or whatever lawyer,
Former,
you
yeah.
learn to write recovery. You learn to write well, but
Thank
when
you.
you get this voice, when you're able to get the voice of a character like you got Emily, but then when you I mean it's like an extra step forward when you can get a dog's voice. I mean this is really great. I will go back and I will read his chapters and say, how did she do that? How did she do that? It's just so much fun.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because for the first time I had someone who loves the books, visually impaired person, tell me that her only criticism is she doesn't like Garth and she skips the Garth chapters. I'm like, what? Skips the Garth? But whatever. She said because dogs can't talk and it's silly. And I thought, oh, I hope there aren't a whole lot of people that feel
No.
that it's silly or feel like I'm degrading their experience, because that would be the
No, no,
furthest
no.
thing.
I don't think so. I think the fact
I
that
hope
you're
not.
a USA Today best-selling author
No,
proves that everybody, people love Garth. That's for sure.
thank you. And of
And
course, you can see in the movie, in the poster, that picture, yeah, poster both, that Garth um, was a dog named Owen who was part of the guide, who was being trained to be a guide dog, and it turned out he did not make it all the way through and become a guide dog. But there were 8 dogs used in the filming of this movie, 4 puppies and then others at different stages. Um, yeah, and I can understand why early on it was hard to find somebody who wanted to produce this movie, because working with and direct it, because working with dogs is tough.
so, were you on the set for much of the filming?
Yes, it films over 3 weeks, and my husband and I were lucky enough to be there for 2 of the 3 weeks, which is so. As an author, if anyone ever has the opportunity to go to a movie set where their movie is being made, do it, because it is the thrill of a lifetime to sit there with headsets on in your little director's chair in a blackout room, watching it, watching the film on the screen as they're filming it, and hearing words you wrote. I just can't. It really hits you.
Well, of course, that wasn't your first experience with
No,
being on a set,
it's
because you
lovely.
also have this wonderful movie, again, one that people love. It's the Christmas Club, and that came from a novella, which is really interesting.
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, that novella almost didn't make it out. I was a more beginning author at the time. You can see by the picture there. I look so much younger. Gosh. Anyway, I was younger. And I was supposed to be contributing my Christmas novella to an anthology with 9 other women's fiction authors, all of whom were big deals. I wasn't the big deal. So I was anxious to do this. I wrote my novella, and we had a meeting when we were supposed to turn them all in and get going with it. And I was the only one who had written the book. Everybody else just hadn't got to it, and they said, "Well, we'll just wait until next year. Well, let's see what happens." And I thought, "No, I don't want to see what happens." I was I was upset, I will admit, but so I just said, "Okay, well, I'm out. I'm going to go ahead and publish this and get it out there and see what happens." And look what happened.
Look what happened.
So it worked out, as a lot of things in life go. It seems really bad at the time, and you're like, "Oh, this is so bad." Well, just wait a little bit. Maybe it's not so bad.
Well, it turned out to be very, very good, because
Thank you.
if it had been published with a bunch of other stories,
Oh,
it probably would have been lost, and the other ones,
yes,
because they were
for sure.
better known people, those are the
Yeah,
ones that all the promotion would have, focused on
yeah,
them.
yeah.
And
It never would. I'm sure it would not have been made into a movie. Yeah.
so exactly, this is one little thing, because first of all, people will think, oh, well, a novella, it's not much. So what, not a big deal.
Hmm.
But this novella, wow, what it led to. And of course, you got to see some of the filming of this too. And that was your first time on a set, right?
Yes, it was, and
And where was that? I can't remember.
that was in Winnipeg, and
Oh, yeah.
then Guiding Emily was in Victoria. So I live in Phoenix, Arizona. These were both in the summer, so it was a really nice reason to get out of Phoenix when it's well over 100 to get into beautiful Canada. And my husband and I really enjoyed that.
And of course, it's a wonderful book. The great thing is you can see it not just at Christmas, because I love that Hallmark always does Christmas in July. So we can see it in July and whatever you want.
I do too. I love that about them. And I don't know whether it's Hallmark or somebody else is doing Follow Law Fridays, but, um, you know, it, and I remember during the pandemic, at one point, they just decided we're in lockdown, we're depressed, we just need Christmas movies. So they trotted it out and all the others again, and that's fun. It's
And
just a lot of fun.
I suppose it just sort of you cha-ching, cha-ching, you know, it's better
Yeah.
than having billable hours, you know.
Oh my gosh, I don't miss that. I mean, I love my law practice, but I'm so glad I stepped away to write
Well,
because now I can write more.
exactly. And again, it's one of these things that happens in life, and people think it's the most devastating because what
Yeah.
gave you this opportunity to start writing big time? It was something that for most people would have been devastating and might have given up on everything. So
Oh,
what
yeah.
explain that?
Abs- Absolutely. You know, it was Black Friday of 2010. I was a newlywed to my current husband, and had hosted Thanksgiving for 30 and was up the next morning early to get head out to get discount pots and pans for my daughter's Christmas present. And as I'm on my way to J.C. Penney, I'm driving along, and the last thing I remember on that journey to J.C. Penney was looking up and seeing a red light, hearing a horn honk, and turning my head to the side and seeing the grill of a bus coming. It was my fault, but I got hit by a bus. Next thing I know, I'm waking up at the hospital. I look up at the terrified faces of my husband and daughter, and the doctor, the neurosurgeon on the other side, tells me I have a broken neck, broken ribs, broken collarbone. Um, I could move my feet, so I knew I wasn't paralyzed. The worst thing, though, was I had raging double vision, like Funhouse Hall of Mirrors, and nobody cared. Nobody wanted to talk about that. So I get discharged. I'm told I can't use my computer, even if it's at eye level, none of that, until I'm discharged from the neck brace, which took 12 weeks. Call my ophthalmologist, who says, oh, the double vision will resolve itself in 4 to 6 months, but don't patch an eye because that'll impede your progress. So there I am. I can't computer, can't read, can't watch TV. I'm bored. I start walking. And I got the idea from my Rosemont series. When I was well enough, I wrote it on a legal pad, and then when I was cleared to use the computer, I started writing. And
Well,
that was
I'm glad you
25
mentioned that.
books.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you mentioned that because that is my sister. Now, my sister in our area is known as the connoisseur of cozy mysteries,
Oh, yeah.
and her name is Natalie. And she loves the Rosemont series because she was a bookkeeper. And so Maggie Martin, so she related to this series. I mean, from book one, and that's really, Natalie only reads cozy mysteries. She doesn't like thrillers. She doesn't like anything else. She just
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
has this wonderful collection of cozy mysteries, loves cozy mysteries. And of all the series, Rosemont has to be one of her favorite because she was for 30 years, she
Sure.
was an accountant. So, you know, that it's always fun. And there she is. She also in the back of her mind, she's a sleuth. So,
Oh, yeah.
so
I love that everybody who reads a mystery is a sleuth for sure.
and there we have the Rosemont series,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she's got them all, every one of them. And
I love that.
Coming to Rosemont, of course, was the first one, and there are 9 books. I think we're right. There are just 9. That's
There are 9. Yeah. I'm going to start the 10th one in 2 weeks.
good, good. Because
Yeah.
she wants another one. She said,
Good. She
where?
shall have it.
She
Well, tell
shall
her I
have it.
said hi and thank her.
Okay. Well, this time, you know, whenever I get any box of books, or, you know, I get like just today, I got 9 books in the mail, 9 books. But
Wow.
she always grabs all the cozies first, and she reads them. She gets first pick of every cozy mystery.
I
When a
love
new
that.
Rosemont comes out, she'll love it. She'll just go crazy because she loves it so much.
That's wonderful.
So,
That's wonderful.
you know, this, and again, this series, there's so many wonderful things in that series.
Thank
Partly
you.
renovation. There's renovation.
Oh,
As a family, we've been through a lot of renovations in our lives, and that's always fun.
oh
So,
yeah, you're still speaking to each other, so that's good.
yeah. So, just tell a little bit for the viewers who haven't heard of, as I said, every almost everybody I know has read at least one Emily book, and maybe all of them. Definitely the television series, but talk a little bit about Rosemont, because I know you love it, and I'm so happy to hear
Sure.
we're going to have book
Okay.
10. And just tell us a little bit about it, because it is such a great series. It's just so much fun.
Thank you. So the protagonist is a 55-year-old forensic accountant. Her husband dies suddenly. That's bad. After he's died, she finds out he was embezzling from his employer. That's even worse. And then she finds out he was supporting a second family. Well, that's
Mm.
really bad. But she also learns that he had inherited this stately manor home known as Rosemont in the Midwest. He had never mentioned it to her. She didn't know about it. But now that he was gone, she had inherited it. Okay, well, inheriting a mansion is the worst thing to happen to you. So she flies there thinking, she lives in California. What does she need with a mansion in the Midwest? But she's so curious to learn about this guy she was married to for 30 plus years and evidently didn't know. She flies to see Rosemont, and when she steps inside of it for the first time during a snowstorm and the door closes behind her, for the first time in her life, she feels like she is really home, because she's been feeling like a fish out of water after Paul died and the allegations of embezzlement and all that. It was kind of, people were saying to her, didn't you know? Surely you should have known. And she was just, all that was going on. So she decides to start her life over in Rosemont, despite the fact that her adult children tell her she's crazy and, all that. A stray dog finds her, as stray dogs do. And I've always got dogs, and I do have cats in my books too. The dog leads her to the local veterinarian who becomes her love interest. And so she starts a life, and I sort of based the first plot arc is when she becomes mayor of the town on a write-in ballot. There's a lot of fraud and embezzlement with the town's books and their workers' pension fund. And as a forensic accountant, she gets called in to work on that. And she becomes mayor. And then at the end of the fifth book, I thought, okay, I've tied it up. It's a 5-book series. And I kept getting so many people contacting me about, where's the sixth book? And my agent finally said, what is wrong with you? People want a sixth book. Write a sixth book. So I did. I continued the series, but I said I can't just have her being mayor all over.
Yeah.
So she becomes a college president, and I think one of the what appeals to your sister, I think, of the cozy mystery people are that there's always something a little mysterious in almost all my books, because I'm addicted to that kind of stuff. So Rosemont has this old home, has an attic. And it's the attic all of us want. It is
Oh,
filled with old treasures,
oh yes.
valuable stuff, collectibles. And, we've had rare paintings and furniture and silver. And there's going to be a rare stamp coming up and Thomas Cole paintings. And there was a Van Cleef and Arpels brooch that was found somewhere else, and that led to a cold case unsolved mystery that gets solved. Rare book thefts from the college library.
Oh yeah, the rare book theft was, I mean, that one really got to us, because anybody who steals books, well,
Yes, yes. And I like those kind of criminal things that are white collar,
yeah.
um, nobody gets their brains bashed out in my book. There are people who try and kill people, but there's none of that. I like that smart stuff. And I'm always reading news reports of crimes that I think are interesting to put them in the books. I don't know. So I've got to, that's what I'm working on actually. And tell Natalie if she's got any ideas, please contact me, because I'm kind of out of ideas and I've been researching online. In fact, I was doing it right before we hopped on to think, okay, what's going to be that in the next one?
Well, she's given some ideas to some authors because she does get a lot of ideas. She loves it, and I
I'm sure.
particularly your series. As I said, being an accountant, she's always on the side of an accountant. So,
Oh, for sure. And I bet she would have good ideas. Mysteries tend to be the detailed people. They're the people who do the crossword puzzles in
oh
ink
yeah,
and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
yeah, that's her exactly. Crossword puzzles, Sudoku, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
She needs to
Yeah.
find some clues, look for mysteries. She's always doing that. It's wonderful.
I love that. Well, I hope I hear from her.
Okay. She might have been one of the ones who urged you to continue. At some point, she might have sent an email to your people
Maybe.
and said, "Where's the next book?"
I loved I love the characters.
Oh yeah.
And I love an older woman who is in charge of herself and standing up for herself, but is still like a lot of us. She's very home oriented. She loves to entertain. She loves to cook, loves being a grandma. Doesn't mean you can't love all those things, but not be pretty kick ass,
Yeah,
right?
and
As you well do it.
exactly. The great thing also, we've always loved addicts. We grew up in northern Michigan, and so
Oh,
we knew a lot
yeah.
of people who had old houses. We had an old house, and we would dig around and we'd find things and dress up in 1940s clothes that we'd
Oh,
find.
it's the
We had
best.
wonderful times in attics.
Eh, they're just the best. I mean, who doesn't love Antiques Roadshow?
Oh yeah.
We're all just thinking, isn't there a Civil War sword somewhere up there? Or one of the other, a little piece of Ming pottery someplace that's going to make me rich behind my wildest dreams.
Or you could just write a bestseller and become a USA Today best-selling author, and one who's now had two books picked up for wonderful Hallmark movies. And you never know, they need another series. I can tell them. Well, first of all, they have to. I think I told my listeners to Joy Paper to send to Hallmark a
Thank you
message.
very much.
I
I
mean,
think
that's
that has been very helpful.
oh yeah.
Seriously.
I
Yeah.
put that immediately after I talked to
Thank
you the first
you.
time when you said it. I went to my Facebook page. I said, "You send in a message and you
Thank
want this
you.
series because it's just so good. It's just a wonderful storyline, wonderful actors. I want to bring them back, and I want more of Garth too. I love when he's talking. So
And I'll tell you, the visually impaired community loves it and feels understood and supported. It is not, it was never going to be the feel for sorry for the poor blind girl movie.
yeah,
That would have
exactly.
served no one. And they are so proud to be seen as competent and capable and ordinary people.
I think it has helped. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
treat blind people better as a result. And I
Hmm.
also I love that little part in the book where you talk about Garth getting on an escalator. I had never thought about
Oh,
what it was like for a dog to get on an
yeah.
escalator. I mean,
Yeah.
I
It's
hate getting
really
on
scary.
escalators,
Those big tall ones at the airport where you're going down, up is easier, but boy, that first step with your luggage behind you, that's ugh.
Yeah, but now I think everybody who ever sees a dog going on an escalator, once they read this book, they'll be more sensitive to
Yeah.
it and really care about how the dog is going to handle it.
I hope so. I mean, I just had last week a woman with a guide dog let me know that her dog was attacked, I think in Walmart. And her service dog was attacked in Walmart by, I think it might have been a husky that was not under control. And the people at Walmart were like, well, we can't tell them to keep their dog out of here. So they weren't very helpful. If I remember rightly, she put herself between her and the dog,
I'm sure she
and the
did.
dog clamped down on her, I think, sort of missed and got her purse because she had marks on her purse. So that dog was meaning business.
Yeah.
But she didn't get hurt and her guide dog didn't. And she said that the dog was not put out of service because a legitimate bite will generally put the guide dog out of service forever. They can't rehabilitate him. That's just it,
And for
which is
people don't
tragic.
understand how In the film, of course, people see what a dog has to go through, but it's an
Yeah.
expensive process to
Yeah.
raise a guide dog. It's
Yeah, at
not,
least 50,000. And the organizations don't charge people for their
of
dog, which
course.
is great, but money's got to come from someplace.
Well, you're helping to raise a lot of that. I think
Yeah, I'm
both
trying.
from your own what you give, but also the fundraisers that you do, and the um,
I do.
constantly bringing this to the attention of people to donate. And as a matter of fact, just right now, tell people if they want to donate to the blind, where should they go? What should they do?
Lots of good places. The Foundation for Blind Children in Phoenix, Arizona. But in each state, there is a government agency that services the visually impaired. And then there are going to be private agencies in each state as well. And you can access them through your state agency. There's American Council for the Blind, National Federation of the Blind, there's Lighthouse for the Blind, there's Perkins Library. There's, see, now I should have been prepared for this, but this question, because it's a great question.
I will add that to the end of this interview. I will add a list so that
Okay,
people can
great.
find out, because we love what you're doing. We're all we all admire you so much, and
Thank you.
as you know, Rita Moreau, who does our book buzzes,
She's wonderful.
isn't she wonderful? And she does these
Yeah.
wonderful promos that we play on the radio, and now we're going to be playing them on the YouTube channel too.
Oh, good.
You're going to do that so that, again, to remind people, and at the end of each one, we will ask people to donate to a blind organization because they need help. And
Yes.
it's what you're doing is fantastic, and
Thank you.
we're just so proud to know you. And now it's so great that I
Thank
can see
you.
you and all of my
I know
uh,
this is such a kick.
isn't it? It's just
Yeah.
fun. One of the reasons I started is AI. I wanted people to realize that there are real authors out there. Real, those are the
Oh, good
you
for
know,
you.
because I
Yeah.
think it's important that people realize that and see an author and get to know the author and realize as you're
Yeah,
talking the joy that you're getting from writing and the joy that you're giving,
for sure.
and
Yeah.
that no AI is going to do that.
No,
This is
no.
crazy, and
Yeah, it is crazy. And you can always tell when something's been
yeah,
generated by AI. And my goodness, in the medical field, it's got all kinds of potential that we need as a society. But
we don't need them
yeah,
writing books. We don't need
we
them
don't need
writing
them
books
right
or
books. Yeah.
stealing the material from
No.
authors and mishmashing it all up and coming out with some kind of stuff
Yes.
at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I think this book is named so aptly, from the heart,
Thank
because
you.
all of your books are written from the heart. And authors
Thank
out
you.
there who work so hard, they try so hard
Oh, yeah.
to get their books right. They're writing from the heart. They're writing because
Yeah.
they love it. And they want people to share in that joy and to find that love.
Hmm.
And so that's why I decided to start this YouTube channel to help authors find a wider audience. And the nice thing about YouTube is
Hmm.
that it's going to go all over the world. So wherever there are
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
people who read in English, they're going to hear about this. But I think some of your books have been translated in other languages already, right? Have they been translated?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, not yet. I have not gotten foreign rights deals cooked up. That's one of my goals for this year too. They're all in
Oh,
audio, but I need to get them translated. And as authors, we're so grateful that you are doing this because it is so hard to get recognized in any form or fashion. It's such a quick attention span, it's just hard to stand out.
and
And your show is great.
that's one of the reasons I think the YouTube, this whole venue is perfect because it lasts
Yeah.
forever. People are going
Yes.
to hear
Yes.
this. They, a year from now, with radio and
Yeah.
with other medium, it's like what's happening when a publisher gives you a deal, an author a deal. You have that few weeks window of opportunity. It depends on how famous you are, how much
Yeah.
support that you get. I mean, that's it's a business for them, and
Yes.
they have to sort of prioritize. But unfortunately, it's always sort of vice versa. The very famous authors will get 3 weeks of publicity, and the less famous 2. So it goes down, and so the poor author who's sort
Yeah.
of in the middle gets very little time, and it goes
Yes.
fast.
It's so hard. Yes, it is so hard.
A few
Yeah.
Facebook posts, a few Instagram posts, whatever, they don't last. But
No,
the
they don't last.
YouTubes last. I'm telling people. I explained to somebody. I said, it really. Somebody said to me, "Well, oh, I will be on for a day." I said, "No, no, 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 no. You're going to be on forever.
Yeah.
10 years
And
from
I will
now."
post, yeah, I'll post this link on my website in my media kit and,
Yeah,
put it
because
out on Facebook. I assume you'll send me the link when you've got it processed.
absolutely,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. As a matter of fact, I've been telling people. One guy said, "Well, what should I wear?" And he was like, we did a sound check. He wanted me to check so that a couple days before,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he did a sound check, and he was wearing a T-shirt, and he said, "Well, what should I wear?" And I said, "How do you want people to see
Yeah.
you for the next 100 years?" And sort of that sort of got to him. And I said, "Wear a necktie that your kids gave you." And I tell women, if
Oh,
you want to
that's
wear
cute.
a necklace that your grandmother gave you, wear it, and because it's going to be here. You're going to be seen for years and years.
That's really nice. Yeah.
So
That's really nice.
I'm having fun. Thank you so much for giving me so much time here and Joy
This
on
has
Paper.
been great. Well, the time flies with you.
Well, one
It
of the
just
things
does.
you mentioned, we have to have you back to talk just about the writing process, but let's
Oh,
talk
I'd love
about your
to.
serials, because Dickens wrote a serial. All the books that, the great books that we know from England,
Hmm.
they all came out in serial formats, and people had to
They
wait. People had to
they
wait
did.
a week or 2 weeks, and it was that excitement. And with your new serials, but the new
Yeah.
one, which I love. I just get such a kick out of it, because you've got
Mm.
it's silver and Scotch, and it's so clever. And as I think I mentioned to you, Scotch, of course, is a character, Scotch Blake, and I love him. He's supposed to be the bad guy, but I love him.
Yeah.
This things. It's sort of like um, Lawrence Block, mystery writer of America, Grandmaster. He has
Mm.
Bernie Rodenbauer was his character, also a thief, very much
Hmm.
like this one. And I thought, oh, that's so cute. I'd love to talk about serialization. I think this is a great thing to do.
I I'd love to talk about that. That would be a lot of fun, and it's just about the writing process because so many people who listen, who are readers, want to be writers too,
Yeah.
and so it'd be fun to talk about all that.
And I think the most important thing to tell all the people who want to be writers, they should also be readers, not just in the
Oh,
genre, in
yes,
everything. There's so much well,
yes,
like what you do in the Rosemont series. You have to read about a lot of different things, and so you have to just be a reader. As you can't just like say, okay, I'm going to be this kind of author. I'm going to do cozy mysteries. I'm only going to read cozy mysteries, or I'm going to be a thriller writer. I'm only going to read thrillers. No, no, go across the board and read classics too. Throw a lot of classics in there.
absolutely. That's part of your education, and lucky us because it's so much fun to do that. It's enjoyable.
Uh,
So we just got it made.
exactly. Well, Barbara Hinskey, you are marvelous. I think your books, of course, are fantastic. And again, for all of my viewers and everybody here on YouTube, this is here we are. All of the 5 books in the Guiding Emily series, and there are going to be more, I'm sure. And you can get
Yes.
them. They're online, and they're available wherever books are sold. If any bookstores, I'm sure they're carrying your books.
Yes.
That's for sure. I know
Yeah.
bookstores are stocked up with your books because they're big
Thank you
sellers.
so much. Thank you so much, PatZi. This has been just the high point of my day, and I always love being with you and send
Well,
you.
it's a
We're on
special
opposite
day.
coasts, but yeah, send
Yeah.
you lots of love and warm feelings from over here on the West Coast.
Well, thank you very much. And we'll have you back for another special time to talk about cereals, okay?
Sounds good. Yep. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Barbara.
you.
Oh, wait. Did I
Thank
say your
you.
website? Wait. I'm sorry,
Oh,
your website.
www.barbarahinske, BARBARAHINSKE .com. You can
Okay.
sign up for my newsletter and you'll get those serials
Yeah, and also
coming into your inbox.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to mention. Yeah,
Mm.
everybody, you have to go to her website and start getting these serials in your inbox. They give you a few minutes a day. Thank you so much for joining me
Thank
today.
you, Patsy. Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, it was so much fun to talk to Barbara Hinskey on the release date. I always love to talk to authors on their release date because then I become a little part of the history of their lives. And they might even mention me one day when they write their biographies, autobiographies, or somebody writes a biography that they were on Joy on Paper with PatZi with a Z. So I love to do that. And as I promised Barbara, I want to just give you a list of the places where you can donate money and help. And how can you help? Well, you can help by, if you know anyone who needs somebody to work for them. Boy, oh boy, blind people need jobs and they are great workers. And you will be amazed at how much they can do and all the different types of jobs they can do. Now, here's a list. Get involved, discover how you can help. Barbara mentioned the Foundation for Blind Children in Phoenix, Arizona, and that's, I think, the one where she first started the Emily series. Of course, there's the National Federation of the Blind, Lighthouse for the Blind and Visually Impaired, and there's one in almost every town, I think. So find one if there's one in your town. Of course, Helen Keller International, Blinded Veterans, that's a very important one. And then, of course, the Guide Dog Foundation for the Blind, and donate and also volunteer because they need volunteers. So now we're going to hear a book buzz from Rita Moreau that she did for Barbara back when we did this, when the first book in the series, Emily, started. And here it is.
This is Rita Moreau reporting for Joy on Paper with the latest book buzz. Today we were talking about a heartwarming book, Guiding Emily by author Barbara Hinskey, the acclaimed author of The Christmas Club, now a film on the Hallmark Channel. Here's the buzz. Emily Main had it all, a high-powered career with a leading technology giant and a handsome fiancé bounding up the corporate ladder. Their island wedding and honeymoon were idyllic until a tragic accident causes her retinas to detach. Her well-ordered life is shattered, as all treatments are unsuccessful. She slips into blindness. How will those around her cope with her tragedy? Can she rebuild her life in the most unwelcome new normal? Meanwhile, a black lab puppy named Garth fulfills his destiny to become that most esteemed of all creatures, a guide dog. Guiding Emily is a heartwarming tale of love, loss, and courage as Garth and Emily make their way to each other. Sometimes the perfect partner has 4 paws. Readers should know that Guiding Emily was conceived during a tour of the Foundation for Blind Children by the author. Barbara Hinskey was inspired and moved by their mission and is donating half of her proceeds from Guiding Emily to the foundation. Barbara, you should know, is the best-selling author of the beloved Rosemont series and has now published mystery, thriller, and suspense novels in her Who's There collection. Now that her novel, The Christmas Club, has been made into a Hallmark Channel movie, she is completely starstruck and thrilled to have her work on the screen. Amazon and BookBub best-selling author Barbara Hinskey does not disappoint. This is Rita Moreau reporting for Joy on Paper. For more of my suggestions on the mysteries you should not miss, go to our webpage, www.radio-joyonpaper.com, and click on Book Buzz. That's radio-joy on paper. Rita Moreau.
Wow. Okay. Rita Moreau, thank you so much. Now, I recorded that interview with Barbara Hinskey on the release date of her book because as I said, I love to do that. Now, I would just like to take a minute to ask you, please subscribe to this channel if you like this interview and all the other interviews that I'm giving for authors to help promote their books. it takes a second to subscribe, and we would love to have comments. If you have an author you want me to invite, just put it in the comment box, and if I invite that author, and if you're the first one to recommend that author, we'll invite you to join us here for a little bit of time on Joy on Paper Live. So put a comment down there, and I want to know what authors you would like me to invite to Joy on Paper. And anyway, all you have to do, it's really easy. Subscribe, that like button, the comments, and of course share it too. So that really helps me. Thank you again, and find the joy in your life. Start reading, start writing, and just keep watching Joy on Paper Live, because we're filled with joy for writers and writing.